What's up, everybody? It's We Talking About Sports, and we're back with another edition of the WTBS NFL Big Board, and we're still here with the quarterbacks. Justin, what's up? Are you excited to get into this one?
Yeah, man. I'm excited to talk about a former Heisman winner here in Bryce Young today.
Bryce Young, like Justin just said, the 2021 Heisman winner. He came back, after winning the national championship, wanted to win one more. He finished 2022 with 32 pass touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and just about 3,300 passing yards. That's over 8,200 passing yards for his career. And like we just said, he was the 2021 Heisman winner. Now, Bryce Young, you're going to see here, shown here against Texas. The play before this, I showed it because he got lit up the play before this, and he comes back the next play, stands in the pocket, and I think it might be coming up here for those of you guys that are watching. He had gotten lit up, and then he comes back the very, very next play and stands in the pocket and makes a dime, across the middle. With Bryce Young, his strengths, we all know he has the accuracy, he has the control of the offense, and he's elusive in the pocket. Justin, what was your favorite thing about watching Bryce Young in his collegiate career?
My favorite thing about watching Bryce Young in his collegiate career is that he won a Heisman in spite of his offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's built for the pros. He runs a good pro offense, but he's not the best college coordinator. And it's a guy that they were trying to pull away from. Alabama ended up letting him go. He ends up being a Patriot this year, a Patriot coach. And somehow through all that, Bryce Young, he found a way to win a Heisman with Bill O'Brien at the helm. Now, this guy's good with ball security. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's poised. He's athletic. And like you said, Roland, this guy can hurt defenses with his feet. And he's like you might have mentioned, the Russell Wilson type who throws guys open using his feet. Doesn't necessarily always have the scramble. I got to knock him, though, Roland. I got to knock him on his size. He's listed at 6 feet. I don't believe it. I believe when we get to pro day, he's going to be somewhere. He's going to be somewhere more around 5'10", 5'11". He's short. When you're doing a 3-step back drop in the NFL, you're going to have some trouble seeing over that line. It works for Kyler Murray. I don't know if it's going to work for Bryce Young being that thin-framed. Yeah, I have my concerns, but this dude can play quarterback and throw the ball, man. He can throw the ball and push the ball downfield.
And when I was watching Bryce Young play, and I'm glad that you brought up the fact that, he might not be exactly 6 feet. And even if he was, that still falls on the shorter side of the spectrum when we're talking about quarterbacks. He's not the prototypical size, like the 6'3" that we just talked about with CJ Stroud last week. He is 6 feet. He might be 5'10", 5'11", more along those Drew Brees, Russell Wilson types. Kyler Murray, like you mentioned, maybe not as thick, but the height is there. And with those smaller guys, sometimes you see that they get troubled with the blitz. They're not always able to step aside, or the blitz just seems to fluster them a little bit more than maybe a taller quarterback than who would be able to stand in there and still make the throw despite the rusher coming in on him. But I say all that, and I'm still just amazed at where we're at in the spectrum of the NFL, or the history of the NFL, if you will, because 10, 15 years ago, maybe he's not looked at as a top prospect just because he is 6 feet. So definitely a sign that the game has changed a little bit. It's a little bit easier. The throwing windows are a little bit larger, but much like you, his size gives me a little bit of pause. And the fact that he is one of those guys, these new age quarterbacks they're able to make throws off base. They're able to make throws sidearm, running to the left, throwing to the right, as you'll see here with some of these plays, extending the play. But that can also lead you to some trouble when you're making these off base throws to the middle of the field and you don't have, the Patrick Mahomes arm strength or the Josh Allen arm strength or something like that. Those throws will end up being short. They can end up being interceptions. And instead of, being looked at as creative, you start getting the word sloppy thrown at you when it comes to your footwork. I'm not here to say that because Bryce Young, as we all know, he's a, well-polished quarterback at this point in his career, but there still are some things, in my opinion, to work out in terms of the footwork, especially when the rush is coming. It makes a lot of off-base throws that, sometimes, lead you to touchdowns, but can also lead you to some trouble.
So with Bryce Young, you talk to Alabama fans, they tell you the first 2 years, they didn't see the leadership in him. But his junior year, the year after the Heisman, after losing the Natty, he comes back. Everyone talks about how he stepped into this leadership role this year and how he showed the most grit. And you can see it. Like you mentioned, he took that shot against Texas. Next play, he's making a play. This dude really became a leader his junior year. What better than to be going into the NFL with having that as your resume? And when Nick Saban says, you're one of my favorite players of all time, when he gives you that sign off, that sign of approval, that stamp on your resume, he doesn't say that about a lot of guys. Yeah. And he talked about Bryce Young like if it was his own child. Like, that says something to me. I really believe he does have the talent. I think what separates him from CJ Stroud, though, you got to go to that size, man. I can't get over that size for some reason. Maybe I should with the amount of yards Drew Brees was able to put up, right? But something in me says I'm worried about the frame.
When you're drafting at number 1, number 2, you want to make sure your odds of, not drafting a quote-unquote disappointment or a bust are as low as possible. Mm-hmm. And a way to mitigate that is, going with the prototypical quarterback, like CJ Stroud, that's 6'3", 6'4", can stand in the pocket, see over the line. Instead of taking a chance on these smaller guys, like look what happened to Cleveland. They took Baker Mayfield number 1, and look at how that worked out. Baker Mayfield's looking at not being in the league next year, maybe, unless he stays with the Rams. But neither here nor there. That's all proof to your point, Justin, what you're trying to say in terms of you're still looking to CJ Stroud as the number 1 quarterback on your big board. Just through his size. And one thing I'll say, we're going a little long on this breakdown, but it's good because Bryce Young, again, with the intangibles, he strikes me as a guy that you want to be on his team. You feel like you have a chance to win every game when he's your quarterback. Maybe even if he's not the best quarterback on the field, you still feel like you have a chance with number 9 on your team. And that goes a long way. That's something that you don't see on the stat sheet and sometimes don't see on the field. But and a big, I guess the result of that was them deciding to come back for the Kansas State game. They didn't have to. That was a quote unquote meaningless game for Alabama. But Bryce Young said, what? We do have something to protect. It's the Alabama name. I take pride in that. My name is on that jersey. I went to the school 3-4 years, and I'm going to do right by them. So I got to give him props there. This guy's a leader. I think whoever drafts him is going to be lucky to have him on their team. And just so long as, he's in the right system and a team that believes in him, I think he'll be successful. I just like you. I prefer CJ Stroud when we're drafting number 1, number 2.
Yeah. And I do want to give him some praise. I don't want to just, shit on him the whole time. And I gotta ask you, if you really think about it this year, can you name me an Alabama receiver right now that he played with this year? I know you can name last year's, Mechie and Jameson Williams, but he did it this year without that big name.
I think his best receiver was the tight end this year, if I'm not mistaken. That number 81 that we're seeing here on the screen, he was probably the best target for the team. Yeah. Him and that running back number 1 that we saw, take
Gibbs.
Yeah, Torrey Gibbs take a few to the house.
Yeah, man. He did it without the big name.
For sure. That's a very good point. Very, very good point. Used to playing with Stat Card, and he got these numbers this year, just through being a great quarterback.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wrap for us on the big board. QB number 2 is down. QB number 3, who will it be? There are a lot of names circulating at QB 3.
Hey, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we're talking about guys with gaudy stats right now. That's going to start to change a little bit as we get to these guys at 3, 4, and 5. We might be looking at guys, straight for
their more raw talent coming around 3 and 4.
Exactly. Yeah, got to get our scouting caps on, Justin.